always does.
Definitely. For sure.
The Meet and Discuss Board meeting of the Ambridge Area School District is held on Wednesday, January 11, 2023. This meeting is being held to review the agenda for the regular monthly board meeting that will be held on Wednesday, January 18, 2023 at 7 o'clock p.m. in the high school cafeteria. Can everybody please rise for the flag salute? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. This meeting is being recorded for district purposes. It is or may be published in part or in its entirety on the district's website without the express permission of meeting participants. Can I have a roll call, please?
Mr. Carpenter?
Here.
Mr. Cephas?
Here.
Mrs. Fisher?
Here.
Ms. Fitzko?
Here.
Mr. Keeber?
Here.
Mrs. Kehoe?
Here.
Mrs. Smith?
Here.
Mr. Zachi?
Here.
Mrs. Ramasco?
Here.
All present.
Thank you. Can I have the sunshine law, please?
The Board of School Directors held an executive session on Wednesday, January 11th to discuss personnel matters, matters subject to attorney-client privilege and other confidentiality laws, litigation or threat litigation matters.
Thank you. Is there any correspondence?
No correspondence.
Thank you. Are there any amendments to the agenda? Seeing none, do I have a motion for the approval of the agenda?
So moved.
Any
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, moving on to recognition and presentation. We have a student achievement presentation by Dr. Pascarella, our superintendent.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Up there on the screen, if you will. Anyone who can't see, you're welcome to take it. We can, so they don't have to.
I know. Is it down?
It's on this right.
Yeah, we have it.
Yeah.
Okay, good evening, everyone. I'm Dr. Pascarella, superintendent. I'd like to thank Dr. Filipowski and Mr. King for their help with this presentation. But most importantly, I'd like to thank all of our students, staff, parents, everyone who worked diligently. We know that test scores are not everything. We understand that. There's more to that. But we also want to make sure that we do take a look at it. And then we're constantly trying to improve and do better each year. So this has been kind of a long lull, if you will, since the last time we kind of measured due to the pandemic and those sorts of things. So as we go through this, kind of keep in mind that we're going to be looking at data pre-pandemic, and then this year it would be last school year's data, which was towards the end of the pandemic. Okay? Does that make sense? And I'm really proud of what we're going to show you, even though we have a lot of work to do. I'm very proud. What we looked at, instead of trying to go over every single piece, we kind of looked at what's called your school performance profile. And that looks at a variety of measures and achievement. And I'll highlight some of the specific pieces for each building where they did well. But I will let you know, as you go through each of our buildings, that everyone's SPP score went up. So that's positive. It looks at overall achievement, some went up, some went down in some areas and up in other areas. But it also looks at growth and some other measures and top that. So what I'm going to highlight is the key areas of improvement for each building coming out of the pandemic and what we're able to do in each building to show some success. So when you're talking about the high school, we started there in 1819. They had a 65.3, now they have 66.1. It's an increase of 0.8, which when you think about it, just remind, it doesn't seem that much. You think about 2 years of the pandemic, going hybrid, those types of things, folks having to miss large pieces of instruction, that's pretty good. I mean, really, in my opinion. So a couple highlights for that building. We showed some academic growth in ELA, which was 78%, and the state average was 76%, so we were slightly above that. That means 78% of the students that took these exams showed some growth when it came to ELA, which is important, and that's slightly ahead of the state average. ELA proficiency is 55.3%, which is above the state average of 54, so we're a little over the state average there. graduation rate, which is above the state average of 86. Again, that's important to know. You always want to do as best as you can on how you're graduating, but that's increasingly difficult as you think about more challenged. 94.9 of the students met their career benchmark, and the state average was 87.9, so they're above. In middle school, in 18-19, they were 49.9. Post-pandemic, coming out of that, we're at 52.9. So you have a slight increase there as well. Again, it doesn't seem like a ton, but I think it's important to note they also were faced with the pandemic and difficult to learn through those couple of years, learning gaps, etc. The academic proficiency in ELA is 47.3%, which was an increase of 1.3% from the previous school year. That was good. And again, we really did a nice job of making sure all of our kids met the career benchmarks, going through the different activities that help them to decide, what is it they're going to do for the rest of their life. And that was quite a bit above the state average. That was good. Colony Elementary, 18-19 was 67.7, and it went up to 76.6. That's an 8.9% increase from 18-9 pre-pandemic to last year. Academic proficiency in ELA was 74.9%, which is higher than the state average of 54%, quite a bit. Academic proficiency in math was 60.9%, which is higher than the state average, of 35.7%. Academic proficiency in science was 86.2, which is higher than the 54.4 in the state. Science growth was 76%, which was higher than the state average of 74, and 100% of the students met the benchmark. Nice job there. Highland Elementary, where we're at there, some very big increase here, the largest increase in the district. Went from 49.6 on the SPP to 68.4, which is about an 18.8% increase. The ELA growth is 100%, which is well above the 76%. That's very impressive. That means 100% of the students showed growth. So we have to look at that from a positive perspective and be very proud of that. Math, we had 82% show growth, which was higher than the 76.2. Science, 82%, which was higher than the state average growth of 70.6. Academic proficiency in science was 54.5%, which was a 20% increase from the previous year. Academic proficiency in math was 12.9, which was, I know that was low, we'll continue to work on that, but it was an increase of 6.3% from the previous school year. Academic proficiency in ELA was 27.5%, which was 1.5% increase from the previous year, and 100% of the students met the benchmark. State Street went 59.7 in 18-19 to 67.6, which is 7.9% increase. Math growth was 81%. Students showed growth in math. That was higher than the state average of 76.2. Academic proficiency in math was 38.8, which is an 18.4% increase from the previous school year. Nice increase in math. And 100% of the students met the benchmarks at State Street. So next step, what are we doing? What are we working on? One thing that's really a positive in my opinion is most everyone has chosen, it's totally their right, has chosen to come back to school. If that was feasible, we're getting some consistent instruction. I think that's important. What have we been doing as a team along with the staff, and particularly the teachers? We've been meeting to continue to implement data-driven instruction based on data from state summative assessments, such as the PSSA CTSO, as well as common assessments that we develop as a district. And formative assessment is something that we're working on in our division. So looking at summative assessments, looking at common assessments quarterly to see where we get, and then using formative assessment along the way to see, hey, after we retaught this, are kids getting it? Are we doing better? How's it working? So we've had some really good meetings. We meet in each building with the principal and the staff once a month, and we're having some really good discussions and starting to see some growth. We continue to increase the number of students with disabilities in the general education classroom, really pushing this co-teaching model and opportunities where we're trying to get more of our students into the regular ed classroom and offer them some supports, have some professional development and some folks coming in from the outside to really really mentor some of the teachers and the teams to develop high-quality instruction that can be presented. We also provide interventions to targeted students based upon student data in general education classes and special education classes, focus periods at the elementary school, and tutorial periods at the middle school, and study halls and other types of interventions when possible throughout the district. So those are some of the things that we were working on. Real quick, a little example of a common assessment would say these are going to mirror the PSSA or Keystone. They're available in all tested subject areas and grade levels. This kind of shows you when we go and meet, what are we looking at? So it's asking you to summarize the passage. 62% of our respondents answered the question correctly on this. It kind of gives you an idea of what are we talking about there? What is that standard? How have we retaught it? What are we going to do? What are the next steps? Why do we think these kids chose this answer versus a different answer? Where did they struggle? What have we been doing in these different intervention type periods to help them gain this material and do a better job? Questions or concerns from the board with the presentation?
I have a couple. Just in regards back to the schools, individual schools. And I'm going to focus especially on the elementaries. You show academic proficiencies, certain percentages, and the state averages as well for each. I'm assuming the ones listed in economy state averages are obviously state averages, can apply to all three schools, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
I
So,
would assume that the state average would be the state average for applicable to other buildings, yes.
so it's pretty glaring in this very disparity of the three schools. Economy is obviously number one in everything and excels quite exponentially, 20, 30, 40% each. But then you get Highland Elementary and you note that the math is 12.9, which was a 6.3 increase over the previous statistic. But when the average is 35.7, they're still 20 plus points under. And when Highland scores at 60.9, you're close to 48. My math is off, oddly enough. But 60.9% to 12.9% is the glaring disparity that I see, at least for math, in two different schools, kids of the same age. So the same thing can be said for science and ELA, vast disparities. And then even with State Street, you only list one of the proficiencies in math. Again, Highland is, or economy is 60.9, and State Street is 38.8. Highland is 12.9. We have three very different performing schools in the same district. Where are we going for this to bring those? I don't want to bring economy down. Where do we bring the other kids up?
Right, so some of the additional support services that are available in different buildings, even though we have a consistent focus period in all of the buildings, State Street Elementary has one additional focus teacher that will help them in reading and mathematics to be able to do that. Highland has two folks to be able to do that. Obviously, the data is indicating that there's a higher level of need, therefore those positions are going to be there to be able to offer additional support. I think that, we've just really reinstituted those types of periods. I know it seems like it's been a few years, but again, I'll remind everybody that the first couple of years, kids weren't there all the time, it was hit or miss. So this is the first full year, hopefully they're running that focus period and they're actually being able to see everybody, how to switch groups and do multi-level grouping and those kind of things. Because before that, even when we had them, they kind of had to go in this classroom and then maybe go in that classroom, which is good, but not the same way that they're able to do it now, due to trying to keep social distancing and the virus and this kind of thing. So I'm not dodging your question. I'm just saying that I think it's important to note that they all showed here, many of the cases at Highland, and that's why their SPP went up, is they were able to show a lot of growth, which is the first step. If you could show growth, that's very important to show that that child showed growth from the year before. The next step is to try to get some of those students to start to reach proficiency. I think one of the other key components is trying to get as many students as possible into the regular ed classrooms so that they can get the entire breadth of all the material on grade level, on pace. But you have to be able to offer some of them supports when you do that, and that's what we're trying to do by building the co-teaching set. So, that's the type of things that we're working on, looking at the data and trying to get every building to continue to improve and close the gap.
Is economy doing something different that they're scoring so much higher, or is it the
Well, I think
students?
it's always wise to hear what every other building across the district or even across the hallway, what are they doing that work really well? So if you look at that common assessment and you see what that passage and that common core standard, EA core standard that was hit, and if they did really well, we should be trying to share that out with our colleagues at these meetings and figure out what's working and how to do it better. So I don't know that, to answer your question, I don't know if there's anything specifically that we're doing that much better, but we could always learn and try to figure out how we can improve in each of our buildings.
Thank you.
Yeah. Any questions before this question?
Sean,
Yeah.
my daughter is actually a student at Highland Elementary, and she does receive the focus support. And as a parent of one of the children that have been in that, I can say she is excelling tremendously. And I'm very thankful for that support because she's able to understand more of that interaction that she gets for the extra time after school and throughout the day. And that's also helping us as her parents educate and help on the home side of that. So I would like to say that I can't speak for the other schools, but from what they're doing at Highland is absolutely amazing.
Thank you for sharing. Great. Yeah.
Stephanie again, my question is kind of vague with it, but do you have any numbers, you brought up like huge difference, like to look at economy, so it's great to hear something positive about Highland, but do you have numbers that show, are these kids that are going to economy or Highland State Street, are they struggling and further going into middle school, or those kids in middle school that are struggling still, or are economy students doing better, and also in high school, is there any data that you have pulled to show elementary, middle school, high school, like if any of those?
Well, my response to that is I think support services are being offered in all of the buildings. And I think that, some students, and that's the idea of a focus period. One of the things is that it's flexible, right? And so that if you're struggling today on something, on this, we could be able to offer you support without saying that, maybe tomorrow you would sell it something else. So to answer your question, I'm not sure if it's specifically tied to a building. Each student hits different levels and they run into some roadblocks and they need some supports at different times. And we have to figure out how we're going to do that. And there are students who, need a little help at different times in all of our buildings and they reach out and excel. So I don't think it's specific to just one building that says, I was just saying that when you were looking at Title I services and programming and the support, we are looking at the data that says that some students may need some additional help and we're appropriating the staff accordingly. Questions?
I just have a comment. Both of my children attended Highland, and I've been involved in the district for several years. And I could speak on, my daughter's behalf. She's graduated and since now she's a special ed teacher, but we received wonderful, wonderful care at Highland. She excelled, did very well, didn't have any issues, and she's here, so she could speak for herself, but didn't have any trouble transitioning from Highland to the middle school to the high school. So, different situations with IEPs and certain situations can sometimes play a role in things, but I can tell you from personal experience, not as a board member, as a parent, that I wouldn't want to send my kids anywhere else. We got wonderful care there. And I love all the teachers in the district, but no complaints and nothing but praise.
Quick question, Dr. P. I don't see how the middle school, I don't see the statistic, the middle school's performance compared to the state average.
So what I did was try to just be transparent with everybody. I picked things that were positive to try to put out. So if you don't see something, we didn't list every single thing, but it may mean that they were slightly below the state average. So I tried to look at things to say, what did we do better that would cause us to have an increase? So when I look at the things, these are some of the factors. We might have missed one, but we think that maybe it went up a little bit because we did see a 1.3% increase in our schools. So that led me to believe it's not 100% because I didn't want to put every single thing down, but it may be that they were slightly below the state average.
Just a recommendation. I appreciate the positivity, though. That's phenomenal. Areas of opportunity, if we could break that out as a key of focus. So the things we did good, then the areas of opportunity would be ideal. Or else we wouldn't know that unless you kind of like study it, like how me and Matt did, that they may be a little bit below the state average. Which is, if it's just the reality, we got to face that in order to get better, right? The second thing is we got 3 pretty good performing elementary schools. Why do you think is the increase of the SPP only, so it says 0.3, but it should be 3 points. Why is this? Why don't you think that it's as high once these kids get into the middle school?
Well, so there's a variety of factors that create an SPP. One of them is trying to show a year's worth of growth. I don't have an exact analogy planned out in my mind right now to be able to say that to you, but I would just say that as you progress year after year, you have to continue to offer supports at grade level and stop that gap from widening instead of stop it from widening and keep it closer so that they can show a year's worth of growth. But as you get each year that you go on, if that gap widens, aside from COVID, which there is a gap, like you have the students who maybe we're supporting them and that is the right services for them in a pull-out reading or math class in special ed. They're not getting the full year, or they're getting the full year, and they're not showing the full year of growth because they need to be in the general ed setting a little bit more. That gap has a tendency to grow. So what we need to do is make sure that we're offering those supports, in my opinion, to those students, but also trying to encourage as many students as a program. There's sometimes you have to look at it from an IEP perspective and say it's not appropriate, but trying to look at our students to the best of our ability and place them in areas of success. So I don't have a direct answer as to tell you why it didn't continue to go up. I just know that it is challenging. The material the expectations in the middle school get higher, and we have to just continue to try to work to help them to manage that and grow. Look at the data and really ask ourselves, hey, if we were able to show everyone, and I know I said that about Highland, I was just sharing that we're looking at it, and there was a lot of growth by almost every single kid. How do we continue to do that, which will inch them closer to proficiency? Obviously, you know that when you score very high, to grow is more difficult. Testing is harder, it's difficult to grow. When you score a little bit lower, then it's a little bit easier maybe to hit that year's worth of growth. Not easy, but I'm just saying. So you have to look at both of those factors when you're looking at it. And again, I'll repeat myself, it is a major component and we should look at it. We should mind, but it isn't the only thing that makes our students who they are. And it can't be solely about the test. We have to look at things like career benchmarks. We have to look at things like, speaking and listening skills that can be applied to the test, but they're not only as they go out.
There's a lot of gray here, and I don't want to take away from that. I don't. But as a board member, I just want to make sure that I'm speaking transparent, honestly, and open as we see the disparities in elementary scores. If you look at these, you look at the presentation, we are working very hard to make sure that the quality of education does not go off a cliff. Because if you look at it for what it is, it's pretty decent at elementary, middle school it goes down, then you look at the high school, it doesn't get back to where it was a few years ago if you look at the scores. And that is something that, I know you're committed to, we'll be committed to make sure the quality of education maintains and doesn't decrease as they move on to their academic career.
I just like to point out again, we beat a dead horse with COVID, but, we lost quality instructional time there, and I'm not blaming all of it on that, but, that was a significant factor in progress, and not just here in Ambridge, but everywhere. So we look forward to progress, and we did make progress, and Thank you, Dr. Pascarella, and your administrative staff for showing progress.
And I said, it's the teaching staff, paraeducators, and parents, and guardians, and everyone who helped through that difficult time to keep working with these kids and buying in to help them, excel and show that it's not easy. It was not an easy transition, and you think back to those very formative years, and you miss some of that for one reason or another. It's hard. It makes it hard. Come back to it, it makes it hard. So thanks to everybody. I think it was our staff's effort, and in particular, and our parents and everybody who joined together. And I think it's a step in the right direction. We just need to continue to try to grow to the best of our ability. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so at this time, district residents may come forward to comment on agenda items only. Each person must state their first and last name and address prior to speaking. Each resident will be allowed 3 minutes and can speak only once. This period for public comment prior to the standing committee reports will be limited to 1/2 hour. Although not required, board members desiring to address questions or concerns may do so after the residents' comments or questions or at the conclusion of the committee reports. There will still be an opportunity for residents to comment on any business relevant to the Ambridge Area School District under old and new business at the end of the meeting. Is there anybody who wishes to comment on any agenda items this evening? Okay. Moving on to legislative action for this meeting. Under Personnel and Salary Schedule and Labor Relations, Mr. Cephas and Mrs. Smith.
Yeah, I'll take it, Madam President. Thank you.
Thank you.
I so move to approve the following as it reads. All new hires pending recipient of satisfactory and current clearances, satisfactory drug screening, TB testing, responses by current former employer to Act 168 screenings and PDE certifications if applicable. Item 1. It is recommended to approve Corey Bailey as a PCCD grant-funded elementary guidance counselor at the salary as listed, Step 1 Master, as per the terms of the Ambridge Area Education Association Agreement, pending receipt of current clearances, satisfactory drug screenings, TB testing, and responses by current former employer to Act 168 screening and PDE certifications if applicable. This position is contingent on the funding in the PCCD Health and Safety Grant and will not be continued at the end of the funding cycle. Item 2, roads, transit, bus drivers, and aides and substitutes. It's recommended to approve the following list of operators, or listed as operators, attendance, and maintenance for Roads Transit Inc. for the 22-23 school year, pending receipt of current clearances, satisfactory drug screening, TB testing responses by current former employers to Act 168 screening. Appendix A, or Item 3, 22-23 spring coach. It is recommended the following individuals be approved to fill the designated spring coaching position for the 22-23 school year at a salary as per the term of the collective bargaining agreement, pending recipient of current clearances, satisfactory drug screening, TB testing responses by current former employers to Act 168 screening, provided the school year allows coaches to hold winter spring sports as normal. Item 1, softball, Amanda Mitchell, head coach, $4,300. And that's it.
I'll second the motion.
Thank you. Any board discussion? Okay, can I have a roll call, please?
Mr. Carpenter?
Yes.
Mr. Cephas?
Yes?
Mrs. Fisher?
Yes on 1 and 2, no on 3, and I will just express based on the opinion that Dr. Pascarella had recommended to us previously. And there's nothing against, I wish Amanda a lot of luck in coaching. I would like to just state that I did receive quite a few calls from some of the parents, and I know a few of the suggestions that they were asking if maybe some of the assistants might be able to continue to help out with such short notice on the season that's already, they should have already been in the gym. So thank you.
Ms. Fitzko?
Yes.
Mr. Keever?
Yes.
Mrs. Kehoe?
Yes on items 1 on 2, no on item number 3, and my reason for that is while she has a lot of basketball experience on her resume, she has no softball coaching experience.
Mrs. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Zachary?
Yes.
Mrs. Ramasco?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Under committee reports, these are non-voting agenda items. Education and Technology, Mrs. Smith and Mr. Zachi.
Thank you, Madam President. Under number 1, We were presented with two options, actually, for the proposed 2023-24 school calendar. Now would be a good time for discussion. I'm going to recommend with a start date of August 23rd, 2023. That would be my plan for next week unless someone opposes.
Mrs. Smith?
Yes.
I had asked Dr. Pasquarella earlier today, just briefly, we talked, and you can speak a little bit more to this, but there were 2 days in particular that, I can't remember who it was that brought it up to me, but anyway, the Kennywood Day on the 29th, that is possible to be moved to the 28th if we wanted to extend. I know it's always been that Wednesday, but because of the graduation day and the last day of school being the 31st, so it's so close, moving it a day prior to the 28th, then they have two more days before their last day, if that makes sense. So I think that's something that you were looking into, but we won't have confirmation on before next week, correct?
Yeah, well, I think if that's the board's wishes, I know that Ms. Bueller did reach out to Kennywood and they said they couldn't guarantee it, but we can make that tentative. If you want us to move 29 to 28 for Kennywood.
So I guess that's something we would have to decide on.
What's the process? Why do we have to have permission by Kennywood?
I guess-
Ability, I believe.
Yeah, as far as I know from other districts, and I don't, I know there's new management, but generally speaking, these dates, they figure out who's going to come on
Okay.
these discounted rates and combine certain schools. I remember it's come up in other schools that I have worked in, but at the end of the day, it's kind of this schedule that allows to make sure that, they have the appropriate, people get to have a good experience on those days and not everyone came on the same day, is their answer. And so these days have kind of always been the day. I don't have a better answer than that as being the reason why, but that's kind of the way it is. Now, there is new,
Kennywood picks it.
basically, yes, Kenny,
Kennywood chooses it.
correct. But
Yeah.
we did ask, and they said that they would tentatively move us to the 20th. It's the first that's ever happened.
Yeah, I know, we had tried to move this once before.
We did.
And we couldn't.
Right.
Yeah.
But I don't see an issue with voting on the calendar, and then, if they would, we were able to do that, just amending it at a later date.
That makes sense, yeah.
We could also do that.
The other date in question was March 25th. If we were to go with this calendar that starts on the 23rd of August, the 25th maybe possibly moving to the 27th so that the kids have an extra day off instead of having Monday off, coming back Tuesday, Wednesday, and then they're off Thursday, Friday, depending on snow days. So that was the only other thing that we had discussed earlier today, which I believe you were in favor of.
I'm okay with,
Okay.
if that's what you'd like to do.
Any discussion on that day in particular? Just because it's an extra day from the other calendar that we received, if that makes sense. So the day that was removed would then be given back, just instead of Monday. Any thoughts on that day in particular? Okay, any other discussion on that specific item on the calendar?
All right. Number 2, Pennsylvania Department of Education, ARP ESSER Health and Safety Plan Guidance and Template. It is recommended to approve the updated American Rescue Plan, Elementary and Secondary School Emergency Relief Fund, the ESSER Health and Safety Plan for the 2022-23 school year, as presented. Any discussion on that?
This is simply a requirement that every district has to review the plan every 6 months, and this is an operation of that.
Correct. So we met as our committee, and there's no formal changes so far. It's been off to a solid start as far as that goes, so hopefully we'll continue that way. If we run into any issues, then our team would reconvene.
Excellent, thank you. And number 3, the Pennsylvania TSA Leadership Conference. It is recommended that Kristen Holmes, Ben Holmes, Pam Green, and Scott Setzenfan be authorized to take students to the local chapter of the PA Technology Student Association Conference in which students will compete in a wide variety of technology and STEM-related areas at the Pennsylvania Technology Student Association State Leadership Conference. The event will be held April 19th through the 22nd, 2023 at Seven Springs Mountain Resort. Students who attend PA TSA states will be reimbursed as per board policy 240, which is 50% of travel cost or $250 per student, whichever is less, for a maximum total cost of $3,000. Mrs. Holmes, Mr. Holmes, Mrs. Green, and Mr. Setzenfan will be reimbursed at the contracted rate with an expense report attached, which covers registration, fees, travel, lodging, and meals. Is there any discussion on that? Moving on to number 4 is the student discipline. It's the 2022-23 06. Recommended to ratify the discipline agreement for student number listed, relevant to a middle school student effective December 14th, 2022. And then moving on to number 5, BCWAN Consortium. It is recommended the Ambridge Area School District should participate in the BCWAN Consortium for the telecommunications and internet access services. Pricing through the Beaver County Intermediate Unit is approximately, will that be filled in next week?
Yes, that's the hope. Yep.
Thank you. Beginning July 1st of 2023 and ending on June 30th, 2024. The district has participated in this consortium in the past. Any discussion on number 5? And number 6, Hartford University first-year sophomore partnership teacher agreement. It is recommended to approve first-year sophomore partnership teacher agreement between the Ambridge Area School District and the University of Hartford. Is there any discussion on number 6? Thank you. That's all I have this evening.
Thank you. Under Finance and Budget and Buildings and Grounds, Mr. Carpenter and Mr. Keeper.
All right, number 1, middle school woodshop equipment. It is recommended to approve the sale of surplus middle school woodshop equipment through Municipbid, an online public auction platform, in as-is, where-is condition. Discussion? Number 2, playground fencing. It is recommended to approve Watt Fencing Incorporated to install fencing around Highland Elementary Playground. The total cost will be $8,390. This is to be paid for by the PCCD School Mental Health and Safety and Security Grants. Any discussion? Number 3, the Act 80 proposal. It is recommended to accept the proposal from Burcone to review the Act 80 tax jurisdiction by the school district to determine if there are taxpayers who reported an incorrect school code on their tax returns. This cost is approximately $860. Discussion? Economy elevator change order. It is recommended to update the work order from TK Elevator Corporation approved at the June 8th, 2022 board meeting to include the scope of work as identified by TK Elevator Corporation in their correspondence dated December 22nd, 2022. Any discussion? Number 5 are the monthly school district monthly bills and salaries. Any questions there? Number 6, cafeteria monthly bills and salaries. Any questions there? And lastly, number 7, baseball maintenance agreement for the field. It is recommended to approve a 3-year baseball field maintenance agreement between the Ambridge Area School District and Dora Edge to install a new baseball field surface and field maintenance. This is at a cost of $3,481 per year. Any discussion?
I just wanted to, it's sort of a question, I guess. I think I know the answer, but just for clarification for the public, that is going to be out of the regular maintenance budget for the baseball team, correct?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Mrs. Ramasco, I had a question. I don't have an answer.
Yeah.
That's why I'm asking. How about the softball field? Is that in, I don't know, but is it in decent shape or fair shape? Are there no repairs there? I'm not aware of any. That's why I'm asking. I just wondered. Go ahead.
Well,
Dr.
so just to be clear on this one with the I'll get to the softball as far as I understand it. The maintenance agreement is, as we know, we have agreed to utilize some grant money and a little bit of the donation money, along with some money from the boosters to redo that field. And so this amount that we have annually in the budget to update and upkeep the fields, this would cover that. And the suggestion by the group putting it in, along with the boosters, et cetera, would be to take on this agreement, because it's roughly the same cost that we were putting in, but they're guaranteeing that field then for those 3 years to do that. So that makes sense. As far as the softball field goes, I think all of our fields, when the new year hits, per se in the spring, you have to maintenance them, and there is budgeted amounts. So I'm sure there will be work that needs to be done. I'm not aware that it needs to be resurfaced or anything at this time. I think no one brought that to my attention.
Okay, all right, thank you.
It does have a different surface, I believe, than the baseball field will.
It
So I was
is, and
thinking
I don't have the answers to it. I was
Yeah.
just wondering,
No, it's a
just
good question.
trying to be fair out of compliance, Title IX and everything, that we're
Right.
on the same page with keeping things fair.
I mean, I think that's something, could we even look into maybe utilizing them for the softball fields if they'd be interested? The same company? I know they didn't put the field in, but could always look into it.
Yeah, so our softball field is a crushed brick surface. There is some annual maintenance that should be being completed. You have to put a new layer as almost like a topsoil, but it's this crushed brick every year. The bases typically need to be realigned, things like that have to happen. Our maintenance is usually very good at taking
They
care
are.
of that. Sometimes there are some water ponding, flooding issues. So this might be something coming up, but probably not right now.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Moving on to athletics and public relations, Mr. Zachi and Ms. Fitzko.
You want to do the Hall of Honor and
Just,
then?
yeah, just the
okay.
point of information, yep.
Just a point of information, the Hall of Honor. Annually, Ambridge Area School District proudly recognizes graduates to induct into the Bridger Hall of Honor. The Bridger Hall of Honor was established to commend those outstanding graduates for their accomplishments, successes, services to others, and/or state and national awards. Applications to complete the 23 nominations are available on the district website. And the only order tonight is an overnight tournament participation. It's recommended to approve the high school boys volleyball team attend the following overnight tournaments at Northeastern High School, Manchester, PA on April 1st. Discussion?
Matt, is there a known cost associated with that, or is that still to be determined
For the tournament?
for the trip? Overnight, it looks like it's an overnight.
In the past, they've used boosters,
Booster money.
fundraising. I think the district pays like a tournament fee or whatever, maybe half some of the busing. I don't know exact, but
Yeah, I believe
it's
that's
usually
all.
out of pocket for the
Yeah.
boosters.
Okay, thank you. Under steering and rules and legislative, Mrs. Kehoe, Mrs. Fisher.
Yes, I'll begin. Policy 907.1, school visitors, Megan's Law offenders, second reading. It is recommended as a second reading to adopt School Board Policy 907.1, school visitors, Megan's Law offenders, to ensure student safety while continuing to allow for parents to remain involved in their students' education. Any questions? Number 2, Flourish Beaver County Operating Committee 2023 School Director Representative Ballot. It is recommended to approve the 2023 ballot be cast for the School Director Representative of the Flourish Beaver County Operation Committee. Any questions?
When are we casting the ballot?
Next week, I believe.
Okay.
Is that correct?
Next week, though.
Item number 3 is meeting notice. It is recommended to correct the previously advertised optional July board meeting date from Wednesday, July 12th, 2023 to Wednesday, July 19th, 2023. Why are we moving?
So that was due to, it was always the third Wednesday of the month for voting meeting.
Right.
And we have it on there as the second Wednesday of the month. So that's just to correct it to make it the third Wednesday of the month. If that makes sense.
But only one
Unless
meeting.
that's a concern.
It'll just be one meeting, Mrs. Ramasco?
As
Or-
it's listed now, there's only one meeting, and it's actually listed as optional for that one meeting in July.
Right.
So
But we have done that in the
typically
past.
speaking, right.
have not met in July.
Right. So if it's not needed, then we won't need one at all. But if it is needed, then it technically
It will move, just the
fall in
date will
place.
change.
Yeah. So if anybody has an issue with the date, that would be something we can discuss now. Otherwise, it would just move to the third Wednesday of the month as all the other
I
months.
personally would rather have it on the 12th.
Okay. Is there anybody else that has anything for either of those days? Any other discussion on any of those items? Okay. Moving on, under my address, the only thing I would say is thank you very much, Dr. Pasquarella, for giving us all of that data tonight on all of our district buildings. Congratulations to the students who achieved those scores. Congratulations to the teachers and the administrators. Obviously, you guys did an excellent job. Of course, there's always growth to be had, and we have a lot more, like you said, you have a lot way to go to get to that point, but those are great growth. Seeing all of that in every building is very positive. And so thank you for presenting that to the board. Other than that, welcome back from winter break, and I hope everybody has a nice second semester. That's all I have. Dr. Pasquarella?
Yeah, likewise. Hopefully everyone, welcome back. Happy New Year. We're off and running here. Hopefully you'll get a chance to catch some of our winter sports and activities that we have going on. Really good seasons going on. And then obviously time flies. It'll be spring before we know it. But that's how I try to look at it. But thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak and present. And, we'll continue to work hard. And again, thank you to our staff and administration, teachers, parents, and parents.
Thank you. Solicitor Turnbull?
I have no report. Thank you.
Thank you. It is now time for old and new business. Any district resident who desires to comment on any business relevant to the Amber Area School District should now come forward. Each person must state their first and last name and address prior to speaking. Each person will be allowed 3 minutes and can speak only once. This period for public comment prior to the standing committee reports will be limited to 1/2 hour. Any public comments this evening? You can come forward.
Good evening. I'm Walter Braski, Harmony Township resident. First year parent in the school district. My daughter just started kindergarten at Highland Elementary. So excited to be a part of the district. It's my first meeting, so we want to make sure we were involved and kind of come down and get a feel for it. I did have 2 questions. One was involving the principal at Highland Elementary. What the plan is for Mr. McKelvey now that he has left, who will be the lead administrator in the interim. And just wasn't sure why there was no notification of parents as to why that was happening. And then the second question is, there was an incident, I believe the first week back of school, involving a suspicious man on the property. Harmony Township Police were called. They came out. It was taken care of by Harmony Township Police. But just wanted to see if the idea was ever visited to talk to Harmony Township to see if there was a way to have them there for arrival and dismissal, which would be roughly like 45 minutes a day. That was all.
Can we have your name again?
Yep,
So
Bob. Last name is Zebraski. Zebraski.
Thank you.
Yep. Thank you very much.
Do you mind speaking to this?
Sure.
Thank you.
On those couple of issues, as far as the principal goes, we have been interviewing. We actually did repost. We had anticipated that there would have possibly been an opportunity to be able to fill that position pretty quickly and announce that. But at this given point, we did repost, so we're going to be interviewing. And in the meantime, myself, Mr. King, and Dr. Filipowski will be there. We've let the building know that we're not serving it as the per se principal. We're serving for those days as the principal. So I've kind of let people know that we are available, but that is a good point. We could surely try to get that information out until we get somebody in place, that we will be around if you have questions. Let the main office know. And as far as Harmony Township goes, I mean, I think that, they do come up occasionally if there is a need for any reason, or just to drop by and try to show. But I think the staffing, when we've asked a little bit about that before, was they couldn't guarantee that they'd be able to do that every day at that time. That was the last I thought. It's been a while, so I don't want to quote that for them. But that if we needed them, they would come by.
Maybe we can revisit that and get that officer down there for arrival and dismissal. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mr. Zabrowski,
Yes.
I'd like to ask you if that's an amber chat or an Altoona hat. If it's an amber chat, I want.
An amber chat, I gotta give it.
Okay, I dig it. It's cool.
Well, you're in the right place. You're in the right place.
Yeah, it's very cool, and I'd like to welcome you to the district. You and your family. Thank you.
Any other public comments this evening?
I'm in Sunset Hills. I don't like talking in front of people, so.
It's okay.
I'm gonna start off by saying, before I get like into any negative questions I have, just that, the new resource officer, at middle school, Glenn Sovich, he has been doing like a phenomenal job. I've heard that from other parents, but myself included. Completely honest, I don't have the best 13-year-old son, so he got put into the boxing program as a punishment, but he has only had 2 weeks of it, and he has continued on with it with Glenn. He's doing like tests with the boys during lunch to keep their minds occupied, so they're not fighting, getting into stuff. It's been a blessing, really, at least to my son, and I know a lot of other sons in the school district. I don't know that he's doing a lot with the girls, or if they have someone, so they don't have a girl in middle school. And then also the high school, how you brought up COVID, and everyone keeps bringing it up. The high school, my daughter is in cyber, but you guys did a phenomenal job with her, getting her into cyber, because the guidance counselors, the teachers she did have 2 weeks that she was back and forth, were phenomenal with her. I can't say enough, and she's excelling in cyber. I don't want her there. I want her in high school and getting that experience, but those 2 things were like great this year. So I just want to like give a positive before, I don't know if mine are questions or concerns or how, like if you'll be able to answer them. My biggest one, my son is starting to play boys middle school basketball. I've never had a kid in like an actual school affiliated sport, like with the district. We did ABE for soccer and baseball. So that's all I know, like, you know, parents and volunteers and stuff like that. I'm having like butting heads with the head coach of the boys basketball. We don't need to get into it, but texts or exchange that were unprofessional, maybe immature on my part, starting with it. As you can look and see, the boys aren't doing very well. Their games have been 0 or 1 point, but they are working their butts off. Those boys are practicing after school, during school, you know, like all the time. And so my question is, what is the goal of the coach? Like, do they have certain criteria? I know they get paid a salary, but, you know, a head coach is not consistently there. Also, my son has a terminal illness and diabetes, and they did not read the report, and they punished him for, like, he couldn't go to practice by COVID. In the group chat, we knew that he got punished and had to run an hour and 15 minutes and wasn't allowed to drink. And when I called and asked, like, hey, you know, he has diabetes and CF, they were like, no. They blamed it on the trainer blamed it on the coaches. So my question is, like, is there a paper that tells you what the coaches are supposed to do, or how many practices they're supposed to attend, or what they're supposed to be doing for our kids? Because this is all new to me. And I just know our boys are struggling, and I don't really see the guidance or help when they're wanting it.
Did you say the coach isn't normally there? Is that what you said?
So from my experience, I guess I could say head coach, Officer Van, he has consistently not been there. My son is in 7th grade. I do know, I was told, because I did call Mr. Hurd twice about this, it's been brought up, that the assistant coach is technically supposed to be with the 7th grade, but the head coach is 8th, but they're supposed to be helping each other. It was like a runaround, like they don't want to step on each other's toes, they don't want to undermine one or the other, but like when you're having 0, I feel like you should probably step up if you're the head coach, whether you're 8th grade or 7th grade. And I did address like the issue with a coach being on his phone. It looked very unprofessional. Like the whole game, on Monday's game, he was on his phone the whole time. And my response from the principal was, well, he's technically not their coach. So it's confusing, like head coach, assistant coach, who's supposed to be there, what are they supposed to be doing for the boys?
Did you say your son was seventh grade? I'm sorry. Seventh.
He is in seventh grade, yeah.
Have you sent any emails or anything to the athletic director with concerns yet?
I did.
Okay.
I spoke with the athletic.
So admin is aware?
Yeah, they have been made aware of it, and it was, nothing's being addressed. Like, I'm getting pushed one direction or the other. Take it up with the athletic director, take it up with this person, take it, and it's just like one big circle, and I'm like at a standstill, and I'm just like,
I'm sorry to hear that.
and like then I was told, well, you can do something. So I sent in the group chat like, hey, if you boys want to like come over, like my daughter's having a third birthday party with basketball game. Like I don't have all my clearances, can't like go in school property and like, you know, plus what 13-year-old boy wants a 5-foot. I'm gonna be completely honest. They're gonna take it as a joke. Like I play basketball, but they're not gonna listen to me, you know. So that was my way of trying to help, but at the same time, like, do they really want to come with 3-year-olds?
Well, no, we're paying coaches.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
that was like, can that be addressed and what can be done?
In fairness, what did the athletic director tell you?
So when they told me, I contacted them twice. Once I contacted them about my son being sick, and then when I contacted them about like questioning with that, they said I need to talk to the coaches and talk to Mr. Hurt. I got no answers really from them. They said it's each like person, like there's no set rules. It's sort of what I was told. Like there's no guidelines. It's each team, like boys is different than girls. Like I wasn't given like a direct answer.
You spoke to you emailed or spoke to Mr. Lamenza, the athletic director?
Yeah, over the phone. I called
Okay,
him.
thanks.
Yeah, I called him and I talked to the trainer because I was really upset that like the whole, they didn't know he knew my son was sick. I spoke with her about it, but it's always like, it's like a blame game, I feel like. They don't know who to take full responsibility or give it. And they might not have the answers. I don't know.
Yeah,
Can you mind?
Go ahead.
No, you good. Do you mind just forwarding that email to Dr. Pasquarello?
It was a phone call.
Oh, it was a phone call.
It was a phone call. I like phone call everything.
Okay.
They probably don't call me back.
No.
Okay.
Dr. Pasquarello, you'll follow up.
Yeah, I'll follow up into some of the issues and see who I got an idea who you spoke to and what's going on.
Okay.
And I would just encourage you to, if you don't receive a call back in the near future, you could call my office and then you will get a call back.
Okay.
Okay?
All right, thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Sean DeGate, 511 Wilson Avenue. Before I get started, I have one question that I would like to ask the board, and that would be what the definition of zero tolerance is.
My definition of zero tolerance.
So.
That's my definition.
Yeah.
Are we speaking of
Well,
discipline?
And overall in general, like when it comes to education, like with the schools. I'll give an example. On October 12th, my son, who is a freshman, took apart a highlighter in his class while the teacher was doing whatever on his computer. My son was drawing on his arm. Another student bumped him and knocked the highlighter onto the floor. I received a phone call from the school resource officer that my son vandalized the school. The definition of vandalism by the Pennsylvania Crimes Code is intentionally defacing property. And he was also cited for disorderly conduct. And on top of that, he was suspended from school for 3 days. I have an exchange of emails with Ms. Stupzik, and I believe Dr. Pasquarello was CC'd in on a few of the emails. During that 3-day suspension, my son received not one assignment. Now I'll backtrack to the beginning of the year that we're aware of with my son in 7th grade. My son, who was in 7th grade, was suspended for a valid reason. He returned to school after a 10-day suspension. A few days after that suspension, there was a group of students that my son wrote out a statement of the vulgar things that these students were saying. That was submitted to Mr. Hurd, the school resource officer. And I'll tell you this, the things that were said are hate crimes. I've asked numerous times what was done, because what was said led to my son being asked 3 questions. The same question 3 times after the vulgar abuse of these other students. He made his statement, and immediately everybody got up and ran and told that he said something that was provoked. My son was again suspended for another 10 days. During that 10-day suspension, he received 3 assignments. I have a chain of emails. We're holding these kids to the highest possible standard. So much so is zero tolerance. Students are being cited for loitering for being in the hallway without a hall pass. That is not a criminal offense. A criminal offense is this right here that I submitted to the district attorney's office against several staff members not from this district. With the evidence by Pennsylvania Crime Code, it is a valid complaint. However, there will be no prosecution because it lacks merit. So with the schools enforcing the law on students for non-law things, you're breeding another generation of, you're grooming another generation of criminals. As somebody who went through the Pennsylvania criminal justice system for 17 years, I can tell you standing here in front of you, the system has not helped in any of my rehabilitation. My desire to make a choice, take a chance, and make a change is what it was. Now in 2020, when I first got acclimated with Beaver County and started the Donnie Donut Project, one of the first organizations that stepped up to work with me was the Beaver County Indians. They're a semi-pro American Basketball Association team. They're the Beaver County Indians, and they play their home games in Westmoreland County. They play their home games in Newcastle because they can't get through to anybody. They would like to host their home games here in Ambridge because we are bridgers. We build bridges. And as you guys are aware, we co-hosted the Bridger Brawl with the Ambridge Police Department in July. There was over 1,000 people who come out to support our community. The following day, I held a professional wrestling event here in this gymnasium, in this school. And I was told after the fact, had a background check been ran, that wouldn't have happened. I was asked by Officer Fan, the head coach of the basketball team, to submit for clearances to help with the middle school basketball team because one of my sons also plays on the 7th grade team. And immediately, I was told that's not going to fly. And I was told that it had to go through you, my clearances. That is a conversation that I would love to have. My criminal record, I'm glad to make that public record. Because the person I was 25 years ago isn't the person that's standing in front of you. The same person standing in front of you now isn't the same person it was yesterday. Every day we grow. But you choose on which way you grow. You grow forward or you grow back. I'm a bridger, I'm a builder. I'm coming up on a year in the community, and I'll tell you what, I love this community. There's a lot of heart here. There's a lot of potential. But we all got to get on the same page. And zero tolerance, I believe, should be just that. I believe if we're going to hold the students accountable, the teachers that aren't providing the proper work to the students, they should be held accountable because technically they're neglecting their education. I have an app on my children's phones. We monitor their screen time throughout the day. The high school and the middle school, what's the school day? How many hours?
6.5? 6.5?
6.5?
Right.
Of that 6.5 hours, we did a 3-month study. My children average 2 hours and 57 minutes a day scrolling TikTok and Facebook while they're in class. Now, when I was in school, we didn't have the cell phones. You had to pay attention. Or you didn't, but there was no distraction. Granted, I might not have done the work when I was in school, but I paid attention. I did educate myself. I made a lot of bad choices and bad decisions. I paid my consequences for them. I'm standing in front of you offering services to be constantly told no for something that happened 20 years ago. I'm sorry. I'm opening up now and turn it back over. I want to know how we can move forward and what we can do about this, because I know the magistrate is also up to his eyes, because we've been in front of him about this. And I've expressed it because a lot of the stuff that he's seeing, the magistrate's got more, the judges have more serious things happening in the community than a kid breaking a highlighter and being charged with vandalism.
I just have one question
Yes.
about, so you had mentioned that your son filled out a report as far as the bullying that he...
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Were you contacted about that, or was there a
There
conversation
has
with
been
him?
zero
Okay.
contact since I submitted it. However, when I did submit, Officer Sovich was actually out for personal reasons, I don't know, but he wasn't in. Another officer contacted me and told me that there was going to be another citation filed after I was already told that there wouldn't be. Ultimately, there was no citation filed. However, I never got anything on the investigation other than these other students that my son said were around that saw this. Nobody would say anything. So because nobody will say something means it didn't happen.
Okay.
Citations aren't a matter, it's not an Ambridge School Board or an Ambridge School District issue, right? Doesn't that come from the officer?
Well, the answer to that is yes, in a way, but we're working together. Just like student discipline isn't a police matter, but we have a partnership that we're working with each other on to try to handle these things. So you're right. The school district, in some cases, may or may not have a right to say if they file charges or don't file charges, but we're working in collaboration together, and we have been throughout multiple years, in particular this year. So I'm not going to say that, I will not publicly say that I'm not supportive of citations, even though you're right, I couldn't write one myself. I do support what we're doing. If that
I'm
answers
not
the
saying I don't support it. I just didn't, I didn't think that was a district issuance.
We can't just obviously do that ourselves, but we're working in conjunction. What I don't want to take from the answer that you're asking me is that, oh, that's the police. I don't think they should be cited. Do you understand what I mean?
Gotcha.
I'm not going to say that.
I actually had a meeting with Chief DeLuca prior to coming back here because I wanted to resolve it. And Chief DeLuca, I went in there prepared to file neglect charges against the staff. However, I was informed that they cannot do that. The school, not the school board, the schools are enforcing them, pushing for them to cite the students. So I'm asking for the school board, if we're going to cite the students, we need to cite the teachers. What's fair is fair. We're treating the kids to this, we're holding the kids on this level. The teachers are educating them, so the teachers should be above that. Am I wrong on that? Should the kids be held accountable, but the staff not? When there's clear communication with the parent to the proper administration, but yet there is no
no resolution. My last email has still been not responded to, and that was 3 months ago.
And who was that to?
That was Ms. Zubczyk. That was when my senior was out of school for 10 days with knee surgery. During that 10 days he was out, he received 1 assignment. And I even went to the school 3 times. I had the badges in my wallet for when I checked in at the school to pick up work for him. There was no work for me to pick up.
So you came to the school when there was nothing
There was no
available?
work. I was told it was online. And when they went online, there was nothing there.
There was nothing there.
It came to a point during my freshman's suspension, I actually came down to the school and I sat in the conference room with Ms. Zubczyk and Officer Fan while I got my son David on the phone, and they walked through the portal and his work still wasn't there.
So I just want to say, I remember when you were here in the fall, I believe, correct?
Yes.
Or was it late summer? Somewhere in that time.
September.
September, okay. So we have had conversations about exactly what you're talking about. You know, I'm not going to go into great detail, obviously, but there have been many conversations about that. And so I think it's something that the administration is working very hard to get accomplished, to be able to have that work available for the kids that are not in school for whatever reason. So just so you're aware, once you were here, we did have that conversation, so.
But it's still an ongoing thing. But my question is, we're holding the kids to this standard. Are we gonna hold the teachers to the same standard? Because when it comes to my children's safety and their education, I have a 0 tolerance. And for me, 0 tolerance is exactly that. I'm expecting the best you can get. And I guarantee them not getting any assignments at all is not the best that this district has. That presentation you showed earlier, your elementary schools are absolutely amazing. But like Mr. Cephas said, I would like to see the negatives of what those are as the focus points. What's the lowest one? Take that lowest one, and that's where you should put your focus at to bring those up. You've got the 3 elevated ones. Let's bring the rest of them up to meet that. Raise the standard, raise the bar.
So what I would say is, I guess in the future, if there's ever a time where your children do not have assignments, at least for that issue in particular, or if you don't get a response to a specific bully report like you had mentioned, I would definitely forward your communication to Dr. Pascarello's office.
The information was forwarded from the school, but there was never any resolution, and I was told that about the coaching situation, that there will be it would be no discussion. I don't know where that came from, but if need be, I would be more than happy to send my entire background with any questions to any of you on the board if you would like to see. I have nothing of violence at all.
Have you ever applied, filled out the paperwork for a volunteer clearance?
Not for the school directly. I was told no.
Okay.
I wouldn't even be able to file.
Well, there's no barrier to anyone filing, so I would suggest to you that that's step 1, and that's how to actually even get it in the process. It sounds like you've been told or you have a perception that the process itself is even closed to you, and that's not true. Now, without knowing your background and without seeing it, there are certain things as a matter of law, and it's just blind law, that says that certain folks can't have can't have that type of access to kids. But if it's not if it's not a prohibited matter, then we get into a different place that there are discussions about. But again, until there's an application in front of the district, we can't walk through that and even really understand.
I think that's on the website. Should be on the website.
It is,
All the
it is.
PTAs and PTOs also require it. So which elementary?
Oh, it was for the middle school basketball team.
Oh, sure. So I
It
think
would
the
be
new
on the district
PTA
website. No.
folks, they could definitely slide you those. It's just the 2 clearances right off the top. And once you would receive, you will receive a clearance. You will get a piece of paper in the mail, or you can print it immediately, and it will probably have some things from your past on it. But at that point, if you wanted to volunteer and do something with the district, it's my understanding that then it would come to us. The superintendent would have an opportunity to look at it, because it gets sent through one of the secretaries in the building, and then maybe we could talk.
Okay.
Right?
Sounds good.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other?
Sorry, who would the basketball team organization want to contact about either the field house or the gymnasium?
Mr. Lamenza, the athletic director.
They would contact the athletic director, and then we would see about availability and what the cost is for that. That's the-
We can always give you contact information after the meeting if you need it. Mhm. Any other public comment this evening? Okay. Seeing none, do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second? Second. All in favor? Aye. All opposed?
So we're done.
Meeting adjourned. Mary.